So tell us about your book.
So everyone has a book in them, but I was really pleased to be able to write my book. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined what that book would be. When my son recovered from anorexia, it was such a relief. And we were full of hope and optimism for his future. And I wanted to give something back. So I said, Joe, would it be okay if I write a book about our experience? And he said, if it helps one other family, it will be worthwhile. So he was happy, gave me permission to get all his medical notes. And the first draft was rubbish because it was just like a bleh, and it was too long, and it was pretty boring actually. And then I thought, what am I trying to achieve here? So I'd sent a few chapters to a publisher. I'd got a publisher, but they said, it's too long. If you carry on like this, it's going to be too long. So I thought, right, okay, so what I'll do is I'll have the first half can be a self-help guide with some very clear messages about boys, because there are no books really that are helpful for families with boys with eating disorders. So short, sharp chapters with lots of practical tips and things to look out for. Then the second half of the book would be our case study. So when we first noticed that there was something wrong, was this just normal puberty? What was going on? Was it a physical illness? Did he have cancer? All of that, you know, just being lost and thinking, what is happening to our eldest son? Then the challenges of trying to get a diagnosis, which are even more difficult when it's a boy, not a girl, and some of the issues around that. And then, of course, he was an inpatient, so we could have the whole experience of being an inpatient, the whole experience of being an outpatient, and of course, he then recovered. So I thought, this is a story that covers everything, so we can really, really help families to understand the whole process, whether they're an inpatient or not. They've still got the outpatient bit that they can look at. So he gave me permission, I wrote the book. He didn't want to read the book while I was writing it, but just before it was published, he sat down and he picked up the draft from my desk and he read it and he sobbed and he sobbed and he sobbed. And I said, Joe, I don't have to write this book. We don't have to publish this book. He said, no, no, Mummy, we need to publish this book. It's just that I didn't remember any of that. So anyway, many years further on, he has obviously recovered. Playing football was such an important part of his recovery. So I do lots of talks at conferences about the motivation of sport in recovery. And he was football captain very quickly after he went back to school. He was football captain in his next school. He ran the football club at his university. He now runs his school old boys team, and he works at the Football Association. So thank goodness we let him follow his dream. And I'm so proud of him.
What was the hardest thing during this whole process for you?
The hardest thing was stopping being a kangaroo and a rhino, because 12 years old, but he actually looked like a 9-year-old when he went into the residential unit. And the hardest thing was leaving him there and walking away, not helped by the fact that I had my husband and my ex-husband in the car, and my ex-husband was challenging me about what I'd done wrong, and it was a bit much for me. But the hardest thing was not giving in to the illness when he would ring me up every hour and say, Mummy, they're going to make me worse, they're all rubbish, they don't understand me, they're going to make me fat, there's lots of fat people here, the lady that's feeding me doesn't eat any meals, she only eats bananas. And he would barrage me with all this made up information that was his illness, saying, Mummy, please take me home. And the hardest thing was not rushing there and picking him up and taking him home. And I'm so pleased I stuck to it and left him there.
And how is he now?
He's a really healthy, happy 27-year-old with a very bright future ahead of him.
Excellent. Thank you very much.